If I were to summarize this whole build series into 2 words, it would probably be patience and luck. Bad luck, that is. Most build series I watch on YouTube have their fair share of bad luck, but you'd think after an entire year, they'd at least be on the road, albeit with 1 or 2 issues. Well, here we are, 1 year later and kind of in the same spot as we were before. So in this episode, hopefully, we can try to turn that around. My dad likes to joke that if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have luck at all, which is sometimes true. But in this episode, I'm gonna see if I can't try to prove that wrong in just a little bit. All my parts are finally here, so it's time to dust off the cobwebs and get back to work. In this episode, I'll be reassembling the short block professionally this time, messing with the exhaust, and hopefully just getting everything back together. Because honestly, it's about time this car gets back on the road and onto a dyno, so you guys can stop asking me how much horsepower it makes. But yeah, let's get to it. In the last episode of the series, I disassembled the engine to find some pretty gnarly damage in the cylinder walls, which basically meant that I had bad piston rings and that I really only had 2 possible solutions to that. Either get a new block and reuse my pistons with new rings, or bore over my current block and use larger pistons. Well, it turned out that the latter option was kind of the only feasible option at the time. So thanks to JE Pistons, I now have custom built 83mm pistons specific for my engine with a 22mm wrist pin to fit my current IE rods. And yeah, they're pretty good looking. So finally, at long last, we got sort of the last pieces of the puzzle to take my engine to the engine builder, finally. I ordered main bearings. It was kind of the last thing I needed. So I had to order some from ECS and FCP, and you can probably guess which ones got here first. If you are unfamiliar with these engine blocks, they have kind of a weird quirk when it comes to main bearings. And if you're rebuilding yours, it's actually something that's good to know. So every main bearing comes with a color designation. And they're not, like, the whole thing isn't a color, but if you buy them aftermarket, they'll come with a little color dot on them. And that is to determine basically the thickness of it, because there are very, very tight tolerances in there, and I guess you could say it's helpful because Volkswagen Audi puts those measurements in there for you to maybe not have to measure so much stuff precisely while you're building it. Those were already taken, so here, get this red one, we promise it'll fit. It's also kind of difficult because the only way to tell what color goes in there without, like, seeing what color's on the bearings, because that wears off very quickly and you won't be able to see what color it was from the factory. The only way to tell is the stamping on the block, which is very hard to see on some of them, and I actually have an extra block that doesn't have any stamping on it. So on every 2.0, there is a small designation right here that's 5 letters. And each letter has its own meaning. R is red, G is yellow, who knows why, B is blue, and mine says R, 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 R. So that means every upper bearing is red on my block. Okay, so now you're probably thinking, that says the upper bearings, what about the lowers? So on a crankshaft, it's a little easier to tell, and it doesn't just rust away like the block does. But you can tell on the clutch end of the crankshaft, would that be the back? On the back of the crankshaft, there's a designation right here. Mine is RGGGG, which is red, yellow, 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 yellow. So those are my lower main bearings, and the uppers are all red. So the more you know. If you're rebuilding a 2.0, something to know.
So all that's left is to take it to the machine shop, get them to put it together, and as always, I took it to my local shop, Midwest Engine Service. And after only 1 week, my bottom end is back together, ready to come home, and looks great. Let this be a lesson to anybody who's considering building their engine. Let the professionals do it, or you might end up spending basically twice the amount of money.
I ain't trying to bring you down, but for real, you might as well give up now. Think you got a chance, but I don't see how. Got a real tight grip when I hold that crown. My life been good and bad and all around. The more things I lost, the more I found. One thing I taught myself to do, no matter the problem, refuse to lose. So, how you want it, man? You can choose. If you can't take the heat, don't light the fuse. See, I walk in slow and ignite the room. Like fire, everything I touch, I consume. I'm getting up while y'all just snooze. While you make breakfast, man, I'm on the move. I'm the first one in and the last one out. Whoever owns the place gotta drag me out. In me I trust, yeah, I smell like success, this Elon Musk, huh? Everybody wanna be like us, we don't stop, cause the top just ain't enough, huh? I ain't never gave no fucks, I ain't scamming, you know black men don't blush, huh? Came here ready to fight on this night, you better just run for your life.
With a new oil pan, new lower timing cover, and new upper timing cover gasket, pray with me that I don't get any more oil leaks. The 2.0, so it'll probably happen. I also purchased a CTS lightweight crank pulley to lighten up the load on the crankshaft a bit. I was planning on going with a lightweight flywheel, but unfortunately I just didn't have the funds for it, so maybe in the future, if I feel it's necessary, I'll upgrade to a lightweight flywheel. But for now, I think my South Bend Stage 2 clutch it'll work for now.
Living by the rules that you write. You ain't know those lavish delights. Now you had no back in sight. All the little lies you recite just makes all the savage unite. Usually I'm very polite.
Installing the engine itself at this point is pretty easy for me. A couple of bolts, couple of clamps, some clips, bing bang, boom, back in.
Just let it get a strong appetite. I'ma let it breathe just a little.
And with the front end off, I'm taking the opportunity to heat wrap my downpipe. Apparently these aren't the coldest running engines, and once you get into higher power with them, the exhaust temps can get pretty wild. While we're on the subject of exhaust, I got a Vibrant Ultra Quiet resonator. I'm just going to put this on with a couple leftover ring clamps. Obviously welding it on would be ideal, but I don't know how to weld, nor do I have a welder. So, this didn't go exactly as planned. I'm definitely getting this welded in the near future.
Run for your life.
It's amazing how the iPhone sometimes looks better than my expensive camera. So everything's back together. I don't think I forgot anything, but it's very possible that I did. Coil packs are all plugged in. Injector harness plugged in, high pressure fuel pump. I got the low pressure stuff in the back. So and I heard fuel pump prime. Still be very smoky, as it probably will be. As well, probably sound like shit because of the exhaust with 100 leaks in it, but let's give it a go. Might take a couple of tries since there's not very much fuel in the system at the moment, but also I have a fire extinguisher ready. Give it another go. One more go. I think this will do it. Maybe not. sound right. Doesn't sound right.
Smoking a little.
Yeah. Okay, so you probably heard that very horrific noise. It sounded awful to begin with, but pretty sure I know what it is. I'll keep the camera off me because I'm really sweaty. So initially I was like, shit, it sounded like there was something in the head. Like, did I put the cams in backwards or upside down or something like that? But then it sounded kind of like it was coming by the trans. And I'm pretty positive, just by hearing it, it's this thing. These things get all bent and shit. And mine got all bent and shit. So, I'm not sure what exactly to do about that. I guess maybe crack open the engine and trans and try to bend it away, maybe? Okay. So, I think that problem is gone. I just let it run for a little bit and the noise went away, so I think it just kind of flattened that plate out a little bit. So, yeah, I think we're going okay. I can't let it run for too much longer because, yeah, it's almost at temperature and can't let the coolant go through because then it'll overheat. AFRs are a little rich. Yeah. Sweet. With everything successfully running and no apparent leaks, that gives me the green light to put everything back together.
And to sort of freshen up the look of the car and honestly motivate me to get it back on the road, I am putting on my new BBS CHR2s. Huge thanks to Jake Blackburn for hooking it up with a great deal on these things. I think they really, really clean up the look of the car.
I won't go through the whole break-in process like I did last time, but I will mention I contacted JE directly, the ones who made the pistons, to see what they would recommend for break-in stuff, and all they had to say was use non-synthetic oil for the first few thousand miles. And I even talked to the engine builders, and they said just vary your throttle input, don't use synthetic oil, and don't go crazy with it right away. So that's what I'm gonna do. That's my plan.
So basically for the last year, ever since I got the car back together, I've been fighting with an O2 sensor code. I'll clear the code, replace the two O2 sensors, and I'll still get a code for both of them being bad. So obviously the car was running, it seemed fine, but something was wrong there. So after an entire year and some troubleshooting, it turned out it was just a fuse. And here's what I think that what happened. Back when I was replacing the clutch a little over a year ago, I accidentally sandwiched the downstream O2 sensor wiring in between the block and the transmission. And luckily I didn't turn the car on when that happened, but I did hook the battery back up. And I think that might have shorted out that wiring, which blew the fuse and caused the code to happen. And for some reason that code didn't show up until later down the road, but I think that might have been it. And I had replaced that O2 sensor as soon as that happened, but it still seemed to come back, and the fuse is the reason why.
Hell yeah. So the car's back on the road, finally. It's been so long since I've sat in this driver's seat, and it feels so good every time I sit in here. And overall, the car drives pretty smoothly, which is encouraging. I'd say it's almost about as smooth, if not a little smoother, than the last rebuild. But that being said, there are a few things that I need to address. For one, I gotta get the exhaust welded because it sounds terrible. And two, I gotta fix that plate in between the trans and the block because it's really loud and it can't be good. But I think the most important thing is figuring out why my car is running so rich. The tune has not changed since the last rebuild, like since I took the engine apart a few months ago. The tune hasn't changed. The car is tuned. I've stated that a few times now. But I don't know. Even fixing the O2 sensor issue, it's still, my AFRs are all over the place. So I got to figure out why that's happening. So in the next episode, I'll be addressing probably more specific tuning parameters and possibly moving to a different tuner. And maybe, I don't want to promise anything, but maybe getting the car in a dyno. It's been like a year and I still haven't done it, but if I can, I definitely will, because you and I both want to know how much power this makes, and I really, really just want this car back in daily driver form before winter this year. Last year, I finished it up right as winter started, like December, and I want to have a little fun with it this year.
And before I go, I just want to mention, obviously, this past year, episodes have been really infrequent and kind of few and far between. No real consistent upload schedule. I just want to say I'm a busy guy. I still have a full-time job. I travel the country to shoot car shows for Slammed Enough, and I also do freelance stuff. I shoot weddings. So finding time to do this kind of thing, sometimes it just takes weeks to find moments to get into the garage and film this stuff. Not to mention the editing involved with that. And remember, this is my second engine rebuild, so if you're familiar with cars at all, you know that isn't cheap. So while I wish to one day have a very consistent upload schedule and kind of do this full time, right now I've got to be patient and really take my time to do this right, because I don't want to end up in the same situation again. So for everybody who has been following along so far, thank you. I really appreciate the support. It's been a journey for sure, and you've made it worth it. So really, I do appreciate you. And there's more to come. There really is. So that'll do it for this episode. I'll see you soon.